Hello and welcome to this week's colour video. This week we're going to look at another observation that our good friend Goethe made about how colour complementaries work together. And that is the proportion of one complementary colour to another. So our complementary pairs being yellow and violet, orange and blue, and red and green. I'm going to go over just some of the points regarding Goethe's observation of the proportions of colour. But if you want to understand it in a little bit more depth, in Johann Itten's The Elements of Colour, or The Art of Colour, which is the bigger version of this book, there is a good chapter in which he calls it the colour extensions, or the extension of colour in here, and that will give you just a little bit more of an in-depth look at the proportions of colour if you're so interested in the finer details of that. Basically, Goethe looked at the three primaries and the three secondaries and looked at a tonal scale of light and dark, like some of you have done with me, a Venetian scale, so something along those kind of lines, and associated the colours with the tones, matched up those colours with the tones. In doing so, he then worked out a formula associated with those tonal gradations, working out a fractional proportion then of one to the other. So it's based upon the tone of these colours where he gets the proportions. And so he came up with these harmonious proportions of the three complementary pairs. Yellow and violet, 1/4 yellow to 3/4 violet, 1/3 orange to 2/3 blue, and half red to half green. In these next examples, where I have inverted the proportions of one colour to the other, you can start to see how they fight and ask for dominance over one or the other, and how even though that they are a pleasing set of colours together, there is still a tension there, one to the other. In all the previous examples that I've shown you, both colours have been at full saturation and at their correct tone as they come out of the tube. In these examples of yellows with two different violets, in each case the violet has been altered slightly. In the first example, by adding white and so lightening the tone of the violet, and in the second example by adding a little bit of the yellow to the violet, desaturating the colour, and also by lightening it. And in both these cases, with those changes of one of the two colours, it means that the proportion also changes, and you can see that I slowly increase the amount of yellow in each of them, from 1/4 getting to close to being about 1/3. This week your exercise is to use one of the complementary pairs, but don't use them in one of the proportions that Goethe suggests. Then, by altering one of the two colours in different ways, you'll create or try to create different harmonies. What I also want you to observe is how these different harmonies affect the colour that you don't change. In the example that I have done here, I have used the complementary pair of green and red. The green remains the same, the red I alter in different ways. In this example, I've used the standard green that I've used through all the exercises and added different amounts of white to the same red, creating a variety of different tones. In this example, it's the same green again, but this time with different tones and saturations of the same red. To create the different saturations of the red, I've added slight amounts of the green. Again, the same green, but this time with the red as it came straight out of the tube. Also, I've added a little bit of red-orange and some areas of red-violet as well. Again, the same green, and like the previous example, also using red-oranges and red-violets, but this time desaturating some of them to different extents. This time, with the green, is that I have made the reds, the red-oranges and the red-violets as dark as I can make them, to make that green appear jewel-like and glowing. And in this final version, with the same green, I have lightened the red-oranges and the red-violets, making that green look considerably darker and lose some of its intensity. The best way of understanding how to use this balance of proportion of colours is by doing some abstract type exercises like this. Don't lose a sense of play with them. You might do some that work better and some that work not as well. Don't worry. As long as you are exploring and experimenting here, you'll be successful with them. Don't be frightened to try some other variations, and I would probably encourage you not to do the red and the green like I have done. Try the orange and the blue complementary, or the yellow and the violet complementary, so that you'll come up with a different range than what I have here in the video. But push those colours as hard as you can. I've done these exercises with gouache, but you can be doing them with watercolour, oil, acrylic, doesn't matter, coloured pencil, doesn't matter. And be just playing with the colour, conscious of keeping larger and smaller amounts of each of them. And the big thing to observe at the end of this exercise is how different this green looks in each of these final squares. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing the results of your explorations.